Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I prepared another quick list video for all of you. We're going to be looking at 5 comic book paperbacks I've been enjoying recently. Some of these paperbacks I've read, a few I've even reviewed on the channel, and some I'm actually at the time of the recording still making my way through. But I thought it'd be a fun way to share some of what I've been enjoying lately, and also just really highlight some paperbacks, some trade paperback collections. I know not everyone collects hardcover, and I thought that this would be a great way to showcase what I feel like is still a really great way to read comic book collected editions. Before we jump in though, I do want to shout out our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you see something on the website you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate code or link to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's list. First up, in no particular order, we're going to be looking at Image Comics' Rogue Sun. This volume was written by Ryan Parrott and illustrated by Abel. This first trade paperback collection is the Volume 1 entitled Cataclysm, and it really kicks off this unusual supernatural themed superhero book. This is part of Image Comics' massive verse. I know Kyle Higgins kicked that off with the title Radiant Black, another really great superhero comic if you like kind of these Image indie books. But this is in that greater shared superhero universe, but you don't need to read any of that to enjoy this book. You can pick it right up as Volume 1 and you can jump right in. So this is an ongoing title, and this is the first, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 issues of the book, but it basically is in a world where there is a superhero named Rogue Sun who has kind of mystical, fiery kind of powers. He can fly, he basically tries to save the world from just imminent threats to its whole existence. Anyway, in the opening pages of this book, that main superhero loses his life. I'll leave it at that. And we have a new character inheriting the mantle of Rogue Sun. This character is not immediately likable. He's a high school age student, and he basically takes on this mantle. He is being mentored kind of psychically through the suit from the old wearer of this costume, and he's basically trying to figure out how to save the world, live up to the legacy. There's a lot of kind of generational trauma, kind of flawed family dynamics in the stew here that I won't get into for the sake of spoilers, but there's a lot going on. They layer a lot with these character dynamics between the main Rogue Sun character here and his supporting cast of characters. We're introduced to a couple villains and kind of get all set up for this whole world. I think the world building in this Volume 1 is fantastic. I think that you get a very specific flavor for the town, for these characters, for kind of how the power system works to a degree. It leaves me with just enough questions to be curious about what happens next, but leaves me satisfied enough to feel like this was a really full and great first volume. I thought the pacing was pretty well done. I think the only thing is I could have just used a few more issues. Honestly, I would have loved to read even more, but again, that kind of goes back to my earlier point of it left me wanting more. I do think that the main character, like I said, he's not immediately likable, but I have a feeling he's a slower burn, kind of heart of gold, still kind of growing kind of character. And honestly, he's engaging and likable, and I think he will be relatable to some. I think for me, I really enjoy that this is a little bit of an atypical superhero kind of narrative. I like that we have sort of a supernatural overlay to the whole series. I think it mixes it up from just kind of standard superhero kind of tights fighting villains kind of fare. And like I said, there's a lot of intrigue here. I think it's very, very fun. If you're looking for a good, just outside the lines superhero comic book from a great kind of more prevalent indie publisher, I think you could do so much worse than Rogue Sun. Really enjoyed reading this Volume 1 recently. Next on my list of great paperbacks I've been reading through recently, The Underwater Welder by Jeff Lemire. This is another one I read, finished up, and actually reviewed on the channel not too long ago. This is also one I had recommended to me all the time. I feel like so many people, especially when I mentioned I was a fan of Jeff Lemire, kind of just telling me, have you read Underwater Welder? We recommend Underwater Welder. And wow, was that a fantastic recommendation. It's been kind of billed as a, the best episode of The Twilight Zone that never was an episode of The Twilight Zone, and I think that is such an apt and interesting way to put this book. It's a really fun story. It's totally in black and white. We have Jeff Lemire writing and illustrating in his kind of scratchy, sketchy style. And honestly, it is so evocative. The emotionality is so expressive on all of these different characters. I think the black and white really lends a sense of moodiness and atmosphere to the whole storytelling as well. We do have the Twilight Zone kind of elements to it. It feels a bit surreal and kind of magic realism. What is really happening? Psychological thriller, character drama. Basically, it's a story about a man who is an underwater welder who grew up with his own share of father issues, and he himself is actually about to become a dad. And in the midst of all of this, he has this kind of encounter under the water that really throws him for a loop. He kind of goes into his own head and maybe beyond, and he tries to unpack what happened to him as a kid, what his relationship was like with his own father, and how that will or won't inform his choices as a newly coming father himself. This is a really tight book here. It's only a couple hundred pages, and it reads just exceedingly well. I think first and foremost, this is a really intensive character study on, again, a man that's dealing with his own notion of what is fatherhood and what has father meant to me. How will I be a father? Am I running away from the responsibilities? Am I being present? We have a kind of paranormal, otherworldly feeling in the midst of all of it as well. And again, I just think it's just extremely well constructed, and I'll never forget this book. I think for me, this is easily one of my favorite graphic novel reads of this year. I know I'm a little late to this party, and again, I've had so many people recommend it to me, and with really good reason. This is absolutely a creator-owned indie kind of book as well, so if you're watching my channel, you're watching this video, and you're only a fan of superhero books, but you're looking to venture out, this might be a book for you. Like I said, themes of fatherhood and what that means. If you're looking for, like I said, a very character-centric series, this could be a really, really great go. This is kind of standalone as well. You don't need to read anything beforehand. There's nothing after it as far as I'm concerned. It's just a graphic novel. But wow, yeah, it really packs a lot of punch emotionally. And I just loved it. Like I said, the art style is that kind of gritty, sketchy look that Lemire can sometimes bring. But I just adored it. I could read this book over and over again. Thoroughly loved it. I'm sure I will read it again. But I'm so happy I finally checked it out. This does remind me, though, if you're listening and you're a fan of Jeff Lemire's creator-owned work, I would love recommendations in the comments. I've been considering picking up Maze Book or Essex County, trying to figure out where to go next. But anyway, thank you so much. Now let's keep this list going. Next up on the list, this is a book, admittedly, I'm still making my way through. This is The Creature Commandos by J.M. DeMatteis and a couple others. This is a really fun series. I think it began in 1980, and it collects the first adventures, the kind of weird war tales from DC Comics. Essentially, it's a handful of kind of government-funded monsters, kind of calling back to kind of the original Hollywood monster kind of monsters. So we have a Frankenstein-like monster creature. We have a Dracula vampire-like monster creature, and basically a werewolf creature at the beginning. I think eventually we might get a robot soldier and kind of a Gorgon Medusa-like character. But anyway, the whole idea is that the government of the U.S. funded a Project M for Monster that basically created these sort of, well, straight-up monsters to basically be kind of a gnarly elite squad to fight the Nazis in World War II. So even though this series was made in the 80s, this is all set during World War II, and we basically have these monsters being dispatched throughout the war front to basically destroy Nazis and take on the Germans. And this is really an impressive series. There is an aspect to it that feels a little Suicide Squad-y. There is kind of just this dysfunctional team dynamic to the whole thing. They're run by this guy named Shreve, who kind of helped create them or turn them into these monsters. So they already don't like the guy giving them orders. They themselves have so much dysfunction, and it's a really fascinating setup. I will admit, one of the reasons I picked this up is that I know this franchise is the basis for an upcoming animated series as part of James Gunn's new DCU film and animated series kind of franchise that's coming out. So that's what really put this on my radar. I think that's why DC released this collection in the first place, kind of recollecting some of these early appearances. But frankly, I like the weird corners of DC as well. I know there's so many kind of smaller DC titles that get really into the kind of supernatural and weird angles of that universe. It's not just all Superman and Batman over there. And I think that The Creature Commandos is a really fun, just little look back on just this 80s title that I don't think a lot of people were talking about prior to the James Gunn announcement. But like I said, I think it's really fun. I'm a couple stories in now. These issues are pretty quick and zippy. I like some of the quirks we have, where we have like the guy that's a werewolf. He basically turns into this wolfman-like figure and then can turn back to his normal human version, but he has no control over it. It'll just happen sometimes mid-battle. It's super inconvenient. The Frankenstein monster-like guy is completely mute. When they were putting them back together, he didn't have vocal cords. And then the vampire guy is kind of a synthetic vampire, but he has all the trademarks of vampirism, and it's just really an interesting cast of characters. I love the artwork through it as well. I really like DeMatteis' stuff. I've had the pleasure of reading, so I think that this will be right up my alley. But let me know if you've been reading Creature Commandos. Maybe you've picked up this paperback. Like I said, I mostly got this in observation of the upcoming animated series, but I'm enjoying it so far. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a paperback that I just wanted to showcase a bit on the channel. If you are interested too in a full review of this when I finish it, let me know in the comments. Okay, next on this list today for paperbacks I've been enjoying recently. This is another one I'm still making my way through, but wow, is it a blast. That's right, we're talking about the Venom Modern Epic Collection, Agent Venom. This is that Rick Remender run where we have Flash Thompson as Venom. He's also kind of an agent of the US government. He's using the Venom symbiote as kind of a super soldier-like suit. A really fun conceit for a Venom title. You heard me right as well. No, it is not Eddie Brock under Venom this time. No, instead it's Flash Thompson, Peter Parker, Spider-Man's once bully turned kind of friend. Anyway, it's a really great book. It's a little bit gritty in some parts. This is a run I've had recommended to me a lot on this channel by some commenters like you. But when I heard that they were making this Modern Epic collection, it was definitely on my radar. There's also a sequel Modern Epic that's out as well at the time of the recording that has the next batch of these issues. I think I, like most people, am hoping for an omnibus edition one day, but I am very happy to read this in any format, honestly. Really, really fun stuff so far. Had to showcase it on this channel. This is one I hope there's interest in a review someday. I will probably review it either way when I finish it because I am enjoying it that much thus far. I know I've enjoyed Venom just from his early beginnings through his initial kind of solo run, but especially after I read that Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman omnibus recently. I'm a huge fan of Venom now, and this was another run people pointed me to, especially the kind of more modern Venom storylines. But yeah, really, really fun here. A lot of great action sequences, and honestly, a surprising amount of depth of character. I find myself kind of blown away. Rick Remender's really hit it out of the park with this one. Really, really liking it. Incidentally, this is also my first Modern Epic collection. I've really enjoyed the Marvel Epic collections. For those that don't know what they are, they're basically standard-sized paperbacks that collect maybe 20 to 22 issues in a row of any given comic title, but they do release them sometimes out of order. So, for example, you might get an issue 1 through 20 Epic collection right next to an issue 80 through 100, and then a 60 through 80, and they kind of go out of order and things like that. They collected a lot of early Silver Age, Bronze Age kind of titles, but recently they started doing Modern Epics, which means we get a lot of these more contemporary titles released in this format. Really excited. There's only been a handful of them so far. Like I said, this is my first one. I think it's really well put together. I'm excited to talk about this book more, like I said, hopefully in a future review. But let me know in the comments too, are you a Venom fan? This is really, really, really fun here. I'm also just starting to test the waters with Rick Remender. That's another author that I've heard so many good things about. I'm really hoping to get the Uncanny X-Force omnibus reprint later this year. I know that's another really well-regarded Remender title. But if you have recommendations for Remender books, definitely let me know in the comments. Really, really good stuff here with Agent Venom. And hey, if you're enjoying this video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I just want to invite you to do so. I'm always doing list videos like this, comic book reviews, unboxings. I'm even dabbling with live stream. Anyway, thank you for considering. Now on with the list. And finally, to round out the list today, we have Superman, the Warworld Saga paperback. This honestly should have been called a compendium because this thing is massive. I think this book is 700 or 800 pages. It includes, to my knowledge, the entire Warworld Saga. Really, really fun stuff here. This run of Superman is actually an Action Comics run, I believe, by Phillip Kennedy Johnson. This is, again, a book that I've heard recommended so often to me, and when I heard they were releasing all of it in this edition, it was one I was actively encouraged to seek out, and really myself, it was on my wish list for a while. Finally broke down and picked it up. I am still making my way through this compendium as well. Sorry, paperback as well. I hope to get a review out as soon as I can finish it. I'm really, really loving it. I may be a third to halfway through it right now, and I'm absolutely hooked with Superman Warworld. It is kind of what it sounds like. There's basically this planet called Warworld where a ton of people are enslaved. There's kind of gladiatorial-like games over there, and Superman goes over there to basically liberate people. There are some wrinkles with that. He does leave Earth in the care of his son, John Kent, who takes on the role of Superman in his absence. We do have him going to this planet, and he faces so many daunting challenges. He goes with members of the Authority as well, which is kind of an interesting wrinkle. The art changes hands a few times, but everything so far I've read has been gorgeous. You've seen me flip through it here. You can make your own determinations. But this has been a really fun paperback. I got a fairly good deal on it as well. Really good bang for my buck as far as just how big it is. But this was one, again, I'm really happy people recommended to me because I am loving my time with the Warworld saga. If you're a fan of Superman and you maybe haven't read a lot of his modern stuff, this is one I could definitely recommend to a huge batch of Superman fans out there, even with what I've read so far. A high recommend from me. It's really, for me, one of the best modern Superman stories I've had the pleasure of reading in some time. I hope it sticks its landing because so far I am just so hooked. This is, again, a paperback that I've been going through recently. Wanted to talk about it. I might have mentioned it on a live stream, I'm not sure, but this is a book I can't wait to review once I'm done as well. I'd love to hear from more of you as well. Have you read this run on Action Comics? Have you read the Warworld saga? Would love to hear about your experience. Honestly, it was some recommendations I had heard on this channel and on other channels that really made me want to pursue this, to seek it out. Really happy I did. You know, this is one that I hope someday would get an omnibus. I think already, again, as long as it sticks its landing, this is a big contender for a double dip if they ever release a more prestige format for this time on Superman. But yeah, wow, I can't believe how good it is. I know for me as well, again, this is a great example of right now at the time of the recording, there is not a hardcover edition for this run. And I think for people that only collect the hardcovers, you might be missing out on some that paperback has to offer. I think especially DC right now is experimenting with these formats, with compendiums, and there's just a lot out there. Anyway, wanted to share a fantastic recently released paperback that I've had the pleasure of reading through. Okay, and we're already done with 5 comic book paperbacks I've recently been reading through and enjoying. These were just a way to, for me, showcase some of my current reads, maybe just finished reading, but also to really showcase, again, that paperback collected edition format for comic book collecting. I think that there are so many people in this space that maybe only read hardcovers or only prefer that, but I'm a huge fan of paperback. I know some of my first comic books I ever collected were just trade paperbacks. I still have a huge bulk of them in my collection. Yes, I am a fan of the more prestige formats like omnibus editions or deluxe oversized hardcovers, but sometimes it's really easy to just get comfortable with a smaller paperback, and there's some books that have not been collected in hardcover that are readily available in paperback. I think that it's a great way, like I said, to read these comics, to collect these comics, and every so often I do like to showcase different formats on the channel. Well, consider this one of them. In the comments below, let me know if you've read any of these books, whether you liked them, didn't, maybe share what you're reading recently, or if you have any specific paperback recommendations. Would love to hear all of that in the comments below, and thank you so much once again for watching. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, comment, and maybe check out one of the other videos on your way out. Thank you so much, and have a good one.